Connecting.
Luckily, there was a pause. And we are recording, right?
We are recording. We are live.
Welcome to Spouse Nation. We are a program of Military Spouse Jobs, which is a unique nonprofit organization that assists all military spouses, caregivers, and dependents with job placement, assistance, and career progression. Spouse Nation is a program that keeps our spouses employment ready until they are ready for employment. And one of the great ways that we can do that is through coaching. So today we have 3 great coaches with us from One-to-One Women Coaching Women. Their mission is to help women substantially improve the quality of their lives through access to skillful and professional life coaching. One-to-One client is a woman who has a readiness to discover and express what she wants. She sets goals to create a plan and to move forward. And one last thing I want to say before I get into our introductions is congratulations, ladies, because you're over 15 years young. So congratulations to your organization and the strength that you have and the great gift you're giving to women out there. So my name is Stacey Harris. I am the Outreach Program Manager for Spouse Nation and Military Spouse Jobs. And I have with me today Melinda Rao, who is our Senior Outreach Coordinator. I also refer to her as my right-hand woman. She couldn't do this job without her. And our special guest today from One-to-One, we have Carrie Fisher, Dr. Fran Bates-Oates, and Sandra Ellington. So let's get started. Let's move on and find out what these fabulous women have to share with us. So I'm going to get the ball rolling. And then as we move through, I will pass it off to Melinda. So the first question, ladies, and this one is for you, Sandra. Can you share a brief history of One-to-One with us?
Happy to do that. I want to talk about Susie Strauss. Susie was in the training that both Fran and I were in to become coaches. And so she's a founder of One-to-One Women Coaching Women. And what's interesting is that she took a 3x5 card, and in the center of it, she wrote very clearly and concisely what she wanted to have, what she wanted to do, what she wanted to be. The nice thing about that was that she already had a dream. And the dream was to provide pro bono coaching for women who could not afford it. And so that card propelled her, if you will, to begin this program, and that was in 2004. So we've been coaching women, as you mentioned a while ago, for 15 years. About 5 years ago, we began to include our caregivers of wounded veterans, and I'm telling you that both Fran and I are excited about that because we have a real passion for that. So Susie Strauss is the reason for the awesome program. And we give a lot of credit to her. One of the things that might be helpful to know is because we coach pro bono and we don't have a regular income, big income, we are set up as a 501c3, and that was done at the very beginning in 2004.
I love that the idea, when you talk about that little note card, it's amazing what strength can come from such a small item like that and the ideas that come out of that. That's really neat. It's very exciting. Okay, next question we have is for Fran. So what are the requirements to apply for pro bono coaching with One-to-One?
Yes, we're so happy to be able to provide that opportunity for women. And one of the requirements is that the individuals who want to do this identify as women. And they have a great desire to reach some of their own personal goals and change some of the things in their lives and to get what they want to have for themselves. It's a wonderful gift to give yourself. So you want to have time. That's one of the requirements. You want to have time that's just yours so that you can work and listen and talk to someone in private. So we do ask you to have a distraction-free place to do that for approximately 1 hour per week. That's just yours, where you're away from it all and you can concentrate on what you want. We want that individual individual to be ready to work with the coach for about 4 to 26 weeks, getting what they would like to have. We also require the individual, we want them to have some stability, stable housing, that if they've had any other previous addictions or previous things that would interrupt this time, that they have sobriety for at least a minimum of 1 year. But we can't emphasize enough that they look at this as a gift they're giving themselves to be able to have the time to get what they want and their desires in their lives.
I'm glad you said that, because that's exactly what I was thinking, is that is a gift. And I can say this because this is for women. So women tend to neglect themselves at times, and man, having an hour set aside to do something like this with this coaching, you really need to be able to give yourself that gift of time to work through the program with you folks. So I think it's a key element probably in having this work successfully for women. All right, Carrie, I have a question for you. When you say that coaching is pro bono, what exactly does that mean? And what other services does one-to-one provide?
Well, sure. Well, pro bono allows the cost of coaching to be at no cost to the client. Our coaches are amazing. This is their livelihood and their lifeline, and they donate their time to make this, to take away that kind of financial challenge that some people might have for coaching. So there's a small administrative fee, and we can work with the clients on that, but all of the coaching is completely at no cost to the client. And then I think you asked also what other services we provide. So along with this coaching for women, we have provided some new programs that help open up coaching techniques to a larger audience. We have something called Power Hour, which I know we're going to be working with Spouse Nation on a Power Hour seminar in the future. And that's like a 60-minute coaching technique on a variety of topics. So I'm really excited to see what we do with that with some of you clients. And we also have a new workshop called Life by Design, which is a small group, 10 to 12 people that work over a couple of sessions, either 2 or 4 sessions, and kind of flesh out more of those coaching techniques. So it's kind of exciting what we've been going into over the last 15 years, and especially just in really the last couple, to be able to expand some of that programming.
What is really unique and fabulous about this is that it is pro bono, because probably many of the spouses that could truly benefit from coaching might not have it accessible to them in any other way. So this is a gift that you guys are giving to spouses, and I think it is just amazing. So I appreciate that, and I know all of our spouses will as well. Melinda, I'm going to turn it over to you so you can focus on some of the questions as the angle towards the client that is attending this.
Thank you, Stacy. Yes, I want to talk a little bit to Carrie, who has a unique position. She actually was a client and went through the coaching process, and now she is part of the one-to-one organization. So, Carrie, I just have a few questions for you about that relationship. So, what role did coaching provide to you after your spouse was injured and began the medical retirement process?
Yeah, that's a really important question. My husband was actually military for 28 years, part of it active duty, part of it reserve. And so I understand from a spouse perspective, kind of the challenges of moving and just all the changes that you have as in that military role. So when my husband came back injured, it was kind of like I kind of call it my final PCS, because that was where we ended up, and he had a big change in his military status. So while he was facing all those changes, I started trying to treat my caregiver role as sort of a side gig. I tried to continue my obligations to my employer and my kids and all the community organizations that I was a part of, which it was just a lot. And before his injury, I felt like we had everything under control. So even with all the multiple deployments, there was kind of a ebb and flow to that was predictable. We would get all the gear up for it. He'd be deployed. He'd come back, and we would readjust to that. But when he came back injured, it was like juggling a whole lot of unknowns. It's just a whole different life than the predictable parts of being in the military and knowing what was going to happen next. I had no idea what to do with these injuries and the paperwork and all that stuff. So the coaching experience was just such a blessing. I heard about it from another caregiver friend and thought, I'll give it a try. And I was afraid it was one more thing to fit in, but it really was such a blessing to me. And like Fran said, to just create that space for the coaching was such a gift to myself, to be able to take a break from all that stuff going on around me. And I was able to gain the clarity that I needed to figure out what to let go of, because I learned I didn't have to be everything to everybody, and I needed to be something to myself. And I needed and really cherished that I had that opportunity to sort all that out. It made me a much better spouse, a much better employee, and a much, much better mother. So I was very, very thrilled with the opportunity to sort all that stuff out.
Thank you, Carrie. And I think a lot of what you described is going to be familiar to a lot of military spouses and caregivers out there. Our lives are lives of transition. And whether it's a dramatic transition like you experienced or the normal transitions of a military family, we all have those ups and downs. So for you, could you describe to us how specifically coaching helped you move forward after your big dramatic life transition?
Yeah, I think you really hit that on the head, that in my experience as a military spouse and then as a caregiver, there's so much emphasis on the military member, how as a spouse can support their career, or kind of how we handle everything in the changes and in those transition times. And sometimes that becomes a lot of responsibility and almost morphs into becoming the identity. So as a caregiver, I started just feeling like I was always a caregiver and sort of forgot about all the other things that Carrie was, like, the goals I had, the dreams I had, the career aspirations, and you kind of become shrouded inside that shell of all this responsibility for caregiving, or as a military spouse, all that responsibility for that transition and the list of things that have to be done. And it just becomes like you, and you set everything else aside for that identity. So what coaching did specifically to help me move forward was to establish a set of goals that I had for myself, even if they were teeny little things, just to set that time aside, or to accomplish one task that was always the thing I put off. Simple little things like that so that I could do the bigger things. And I think just making those plans and getting that clarity impacted every relationship in my life.
Thank you. So it sounds to me like a big piece of coaching is giving you skills or tools. So what coaching tool has had the most impact on your life?
Well, one tool that I use all the time is around word choices, and a tool that we call the ladder of powerful speaking. So the words that we choose and when we speak to ourselves or when we speak to others has a lot to do with how we drive our outcomes. So before coaching, I honestly was the person who had to do everything. Like, I need to get this done today, or something, will happen, or I don't have any options. I've got to get to this community meeting, or I have to get to my kids' dance class, or I need to do this. And I was speaking a lot from obligation. So words like need to and have to drive an obligation, and it makes it feel like something you have to do instead of what you're passionate about. I was passionate about my kids. So after coaching, when I really learned to talk in a way that honored that passion. So I can imagine how much different it would feel for my kids if I said things to my employer like, I'll be in at 9:30 tomorrow morning because I get to go to this program at my kids' school before work. Or I'm going to finish up like 10, 15 minutes early so that I can get to my daughter's volleyball game because I really want to watch her play. It sets a whole different pattern in the relationship between me and my children. And so that kind of delivered when I would be working in the community or with my employer too. Which projects was I really passionate about? And those were the ones that I really found myself gravitating toward. And the rest of those projects that I felt like I needed to do or had to do really was more of a control thing. Like, I have to do this filing because someone might not do it like I do. Well, I learned you can delegate some things and they can even be done differently. And then that person might have a passion for something that I didn't. So that whole word choice and speaking not so much from a point of obligation, but moving it up the ladder to speaking passionately about the things I was passionate about made a really big difference. So that's one tool. There's a lot out there. And Sandra alluded to the 3x5 card. There's, we have planning tools and communication tools and organizational tools, and they're all wonderful. But that's the one that I internalized.
I think I need to sign up for this because we're looking at retirement in about a year, and it's another significant transition. And I'm having a hard time letting go of those pieces of my life that have been all encompassing for the last 30 years. Yeah. And it was very striking yesterday. My husband brought home a package that was delivered to our old address, and it was his retirement certificate, because he was retained for a year. So he's not actually retiring for another year, but they sent him his retirement certificate. And I looked at that, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is real. Yeah. This is really happening. So it's, I think I need to sign up with you guys. So I might be doing that. I'm not sure, but I might be doing that. But it sounds to me like your coaching experience was very significant for you, and it led to you continuing a relationship with one-to-one. So what has that relationship and connection continued to be?
Yeah, and everyone's coaching experience will be different. But for me, I just felt like I wanted to give back as much as I could. I heard about one-to-one through another caregiver, so I've really embraced the opportunity to bring one-to-one to other military caregivers and military spouses so that they have those opportunities, because it's such a unique community with so many different needs than in the civilian world. And having been a reserve family, I kind of had my foot in both. So I really do mean that I know that there's a difference, and it is so impactful. So a while after I had completed my 6 months of coaching, there was an opportunity for board membership. And my coach actually asked me if I'd be interested. And I passionately said yes to that, because I had said no to some other stuff and opened up some time for it. And I think this is my 5th year. I know it's my 2nd term into it. It's been so much fun. It doesn't even seem like it's been that long. So it's a wonderful group of people to work with, and we're really doing some great things. But I also assist with grant writing, which is something I did in my career life, and that's been challenging but fun to do as well. And both of my daughters recently participated in a Life by Design course. Of course, they're grown up now, have their own kids, and they've just really relished that opportunity too. I think Sandra actually was part of that contingent. So they've been able to meet people in my volunteer life. That's been really fun. And then one of my daughters is an artist, and she participated last year in our first ever virtual art exhibit called Tidy Mighty. So it's our fall fundraiser, and she got to put her art in it and be highlighted. So there's been a few connections with one-to-one since my coaching experience.
Wow, that's great. That's amazing. So I'm excited to hear that relationship has continued, and you're continuing to support the organization. And it sounds to me that you also refer a lot of people to the organization as well through your role with them. So thank you for your passion for the organization. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts of how the one-to-one coaching experience actually works. And Sandra, I'm going to switch over to you really quickly, and I'm going to ask you to share a little bit about the background and the training of your one-to-one life coaches, and then a little bit about the matching process.
Sure. It's important to know that all of the coaches are certified through International Coaching Federation, ICF, which is a worldwide organization. And after being professionally trained by ICF certified coaching program, we count that. We count a university program. We count board certified coaching training or programs. So it's important to know how grounded we are in those areas. all coaches work in a way that honors those code of ethics. And just FYI, ICF just developed a new set of code of ethics that we'll be visiting pretty soon. Each coach is committed to partnering with a one-to-one client for a full pro bono course, and typically that's 6 months. We talk about 6 months, 26 weeks, around that time. And that's a good amount of time to get to know your client and get to work with them and help them. So coaches and clients are carefully interviewed. We have an interview person to assure that we get a good match. So they take about 45 minutes or an hour in an interview, and they can get a pretty good sense of what the needs of the client are. That helps in a lot of ways to do the good matching, the one-to-one. So here are some things that they ask the client about. Where are you in your life? What brings you to coaching? What's your current situation? What kind of living, education, health, relationships? And then Fran mentioned a while ago some issues that sometimes our clients might have had or having, and they might be mental health or alcohol or anything like that. We also ask them about what goals they have for the future. And a lot of them think they don't have a future, right? You've heard a little bit of that. But we want them to know that they do. What kind of coach do they want in terms of expertise and temperament? And that's a very important question. A lot of them say, I want a coach that knows something about whatever it is that they need. We talk about best times for coaching and availability. And then in rare cases, and I've only known of one where a match did not work out, we would work with a client to then get a different coach. So that's a rare event, but we pay attention to what the needs are of the client.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about what different backgrounds these coaches come from?
Oh my goodness. Well, Fran will probably tell you the same thing. Both of us are educators, and she's gone all the way up, and she can tell you that doing wonderful things. I've been a teacher for life. I think at birth, used to make my cousins sit around in a circle and let me teach them. But I think that was practice for the principalship, because I was a principal for a long time. Taught at the college level, and then I taught in a regional service center that we have in Texas to prepare superintendents and principals for the work that they have to do. And I continue to do that as well.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to switch over to Fran, because I want to ask her a little bit about the process for a life coach to become part of your organization one-to-one. How does that work?
Well, you heard Sandra describe the certification and the kinds of credentials we'd like for them to bring when they come. But the process is very simple. There's a very short and easy application for them to fill out. You do general profile kinds of things, what your name is, your address, your email address on there. And then one of the things that one-to-one is very fortunate to have is a client service director. And that's the person that not only interviews coaches, but also interviews the clients that are going, the individuals that want coaching. And that client service director knows all of the questions Sandra just shared with us when they're interviewing. And that director helps to match the client with a coach so that it is a good match. So that whatever the client identifies as their wants and their desires and their needs, that client director already knows the coaches so well from having interviewed them that there can be a wonderful match. And then that director also helps that the person who wants to be the life coach for one-to-one to learn all of the forms that have to be filled out, all of the processes that would keep us managing one-to-one, and the coaching experience all the way through those 26 weeks. So it's not a hard process. Desire is the number one thing. And that has been easy for our client service director, because people come with the desire to be a life coach and to volunteer and to serve as much as they can. So the process to become a life coach for one-to-one is fairly easy for us.
I'm going to talk a little bit about that desire to be a life coach. And I would like each of you to share why you are so passionate about this. I can hear the passion when you're talking about it. I can hear how much you enjoy what you do and how much it renews you and how much you get out of working with these clients. But I'd like you to share that with the people who are going to be listening to this and share a little bit about your story. I wanted to go first.
Okay. Well, I had fun with this question, because I grew up in the country, right across the barbed wire fence from Shepherd Air Force Base. If anybody's been to Wichita Falls, they know Shepherd Air Force Base. And the guys would come in the summer, and we called it, I think they called it then bivouacking. Is that still a term that's used? Okay. And so, but the neat thing for little kids there across the barbed wire fence was that they would give us ice cream. My brothers and I would get ice cream every day. I mean, it was just wonderful. So it was no surprise that at age 21, I'd grow up and marry one of those Air Force guys. And we were in the military, in the Air Force for 23 years. I was a military wife for 23 years. The interesting thing about that was that in that role of the military wife, and I'll talk about it in just a minute, there was no practice for what Carrie talked about. And so I want to speak to that. But in 2004, I became a part of one-to-one coaching. And then several years later, like I've said previously, we began to bring on our caregivers of wounded veterans. That's not something that I ever experienced. And so I had a lot to learn. My very first caregiver taught me more in those 26 weeks than I ever knew or understood about the demands of 24/7 care. She had a husband with PTSD. She had a child. All the things that go with that. I learned from her something about the courage and resilience required as she did her daily life. You plan something and it goes awry. You can't follow through with it. So managing all of that and becoming more resilient is very, very, very important. So what I coach on and what I'm passionate about is when somebody says there's a caregiver coming in, my hand's raised, because I am passionate about working with that client. I'm humbled to be their coach. I help them remember that they're worthy. We talk about that a lot. You are worthy and you deserve to live a life of purpose. The life coaching provides, and I think Carrie mentioned this as well, the Life by Design. And both Fran and I have done those courses with our caregivers. And it's just amazing how much growth we see in our young people. And again, most of them have been, as I said earlier, 15 years younger than my own daughter. And that in itself is a realization. If somebody asked me what my purpose in life is, I'd have to say that I've always, tearing up, experienced more joy when I'm doing something that has importance and benefits another. And I believe that being a caregiver for a coach, fits that purpose.
Thank you, Sandra. And I appreciate hearing the passion, the commitment, the care that you have. I can see it, I can hear it, and I know that those that will listen to this once we promote this recording will also experience that as well. Thank you very much for sharing. I appreciate that. Now, Fran, I am going to ask you to share why you are so passionate about what you do.
Well, I began my journey towards a love for coaching with my own life story. My lived experiences and my life lessons are valuable to be able to serve these women. I was born in Hampton, Virginia, and my mother and father both worked on Fort Monroe Army Base and in Hampton, Virginia. And there was every branch of the military all around us. I saw it every day. I heard it every day. I lived through the Cuban crisis and going down into shelters, and I watched what it did to my father. But more than that, I watched my mother just humbly just go right along with it, not questioning anything. As I become a woman, I see it differently than I did when I was growing up as a young child. And then I married a disabled veteran. And as a wife of a disabled veteran with diagnosed PTSD and diagnosed bipolar disorder, I too spent many days wondering what in the world to do. Humbly accepting it because I was the wife, humbly accepting my place. Like Carrie said, going along and doing all the things you needed to do for your family. And I just didn't know who I could trust to talk to about it. I was with other military wives and we were all the same. We just did it because that was what we were supposed to do. And then I met a woman who knew a woman who was called a life coach. And I never heard of such a thing. I didn't have time for that. I certainly didn't have what she was asking me to pay for it. My family certainly couldn't afford it. And my husband was not going to agree to that. And so I dismissed it. I dismissed taking care of me. I dismissed not thinking about me, not knowing that if I did just consider this, it would help us all. It would help my husband. It would help my children. It would help me. And so that is why I became a one-to-one coach and a coach for the military wives who were caregivers at that time. I began looking at this the same way Sandra did. I started coaching in 2004, and I had all of these degrees. This is my 46 years a year of teaching. And I've had 17 years of coaching and all of this experience. And I still didn't know what to do for me. And so my first military caregiver quickly showed me how the demands of her wounded husband and her children just seemed to overpower her the same way it did me. She taught me so much that many of us just take for granted. Being with her helped me to value how much giving it takes. And it helped me to coach her about giving and also receiving as she learned to love herself as much as she loved her husband and her children. So as a caretaker of a military spouse, of a wounded veteran, she became my gift. And being with her, being with these brilliant women is such a gift indeed, Melinda, that you cannot step away from it because it gives you so much richness for your own life, as well as you can give that back to them. So that's my story. That's my passion.
Thank you, Fran. And I have to say that hearing both Sandra and Fran talk about it, it's very touching to me to know that there are people out there that truly, truly, truly are passionate about supporting military spouses and military caregivers, that they're not alone. There are so many times that we feel completely overwhelmed with everything that is coming along, especially here recently. I know I've talked to spouses that just here in the last couple of months are just feeling things close in on them. And to hear that there are people out here that are willing to take them in and show them that they have a purpose, that they are amazing, brilliant, caring, wonderful women. I think it's important for us to remember that. And I'm touched by what you guys have shared with us today. I do kind of want to close out because I just mentioned a little bit about how the military life can be so overwhelming. And we can feel sometimes like everything is closing in on us. And yes, somebody has referred us to this program. We want to plug into this program, but 6 months feels like a long time to put a commitment into something. And many of us have to be talked into it. Even though we see the value, we hear the passion when people share that with us, we still need to be talked into it. So I'd like each one of you to give me and our listeners one piece of advice that might tip the scale and help them decide to really plug into this service and this resource. And Sandra, I want to start with you, and then we'll talk with Fran, and then finish out with Carrie.
You know, it's hard to ask a caregiver or a teacher to say one thing. So this will be a continuing sentence. How about that? There are many times when you just want to say, you know what? I believe you're worth an hour a week. And so many times we say, oh, but I don't have time for that. An hour? As a lot of people think, I'll put it off. I'll do it next month, or I'll try to get my name in again, or something like that. But the idea of taking an hour a week to get out of the house, I coach a recurring client now, and I'll say, go in your backyard. I've seen your backyard. Go in your backyard and just sit among your trees, and just be, soak it up just for you. It's your time. It is your time. So that, and don't wait. A lot of clients wait until, well, let me get through summer, or let me get through the beginning of school, or whatever. You're worth it today.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you. Sometimes we need to hear that over and over and over and over again. Yeah. So thank you. Fran, share with us that one piece of advice.
I would advise anyone and encourage anyone who's interested to go on and fill out the application, to go on and talk to our client director, because you'll have the opportunity to discuss what you want, what you desire, what your goals and your dreams are, what your constraints are, what things are on your mind all of the time. And that gives that client director an opportunity to match you with a coach that would be able to help you with those areas. And then you can potentially get started, and your concerns can be addressed. And you'll see once you get started that it is so worth it. You can't get away from it. It's like magic to me. And so I would encourage anyone who's interested to go on and do it. Just do it.
Just do it.
Go on and do it.
Okay, Carrie, share with us that one piece of advice.
Oh boy, I like how Sandra said that you could go on and just have a long sentence. So I think for me, it's like coaching is forward thinking. It's not hashing over your past or anything else. So in order to get to the future and forward thinking, you have to start today. So to do that, it's to just fill out that application and do it. If you can only do 4 weeks at a time, our program is 4 weeks to 26 weeks. Once you do that first 4 weeks, I'm pretty sure you're going to think 6 weeks or 6 months is a very nice gift. So think about just breaking it down into, I want to try a 4-week opportunity and go from there. But we've taken away so many of the obstacles. There's no financial commitment to it. It's a virtual opportunity. We don't have we don't have like a brick and mortar office. We've been virtual long before it was cool or forced. So for 15 years, we're pretty good at this. So no matter where you are, we're international. So if you don't have the time until 2 a.m, we could probably match you with somebody who 2 a.m. works for them. It won't be 2 a.m. in their time zone, but we can make that work. We have professionally trained coaches, and they get professional development through one-to-one. So their skills are right on top. So you're working with really top-notch people. And I think, if you want to make a change in your life, whether it's like your kids who are driving you nuts or your husband or your work, the real truth is it starts with you and ripples out and has an effect on all of them. So once you make that move, everything around you changes. So I say take the step break it down into that 1 4-week course, or check out a power hour when those are available, or Life by Design, and then maybe see if the 6 months is something that you would like to do.
Okay. Thank you. I really want to thank all three of you for your insight, for your passion, for your thoughts that you're sharing. I can tell that if you're an example of the rest of the coaches that work with this organization, I'm sorry, we're going to fill your slots, okay? We're going to get this information out, because many of our spouses struggle in their employment struggle. They are trying to figure out how to find their purpose, because when you can't find a job, it affects so many other aspects of your life. And that's what many of our military spouses here at Spouse Nation and Military Spouse Jobs really struggle with. So thank you for your passion and your insight. I have really, really enjoyed speaking with you today. And I am going to turn this back over to Stacy to finish out our time with you today.
Thank you, ladies. I was struck by a couple of things that I kept hearing throughout the conversation. The word gift was used frequently. And I just think that is such a powerful word, but we have to make sure that the women in our lives understand that they are worthy of that gift. They always think someone else is, but we are worthy of that gift to ourselves. It's funny because it's so easy for us to find the value in it for someone else. And we need to take that time and recognize that gift, that the value is for us as well. It's scary to think about your dreams. It really is. Like, as you're talking, I'm sitting there going, oh my gosh, do I have dreams? Well, I must have dreams. I know they're in there somewhere, right? That's a scary thought, but it's also an exciting thought, because the final thing, and I believe Carrie said this, you can leave everything else behind you. Drop that heavy wagon full of grief and burden and move forward with your dreams. And you guys provide the opportunity for spouses, women, caregivers to really benefit from this program. And we are just so excited that you're willing to work with us and let us share this with our group at Spouse Nation. So what I want to say before I close us out today is coming up in October, we are going to be presenting one of their power hours. And I love the title. It's Climbing Out of Your Head into Your Action Tree. I'm excited. I'm not even sure what all of that's going to mean, but just that title of it has completely intrigued me. So that should be coming, I think, the 3rd week in October. So stay tuned for that. We'll be putting that advertisement out. And again, we appreciate your time, ladies, and all of us here at Spouse Nation. Thank you for joining us today. Have a great week.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Our pleasure.
when